From the moment we wake up and connect with our devices, artificial intelligence has significant influence. E-commerce, news curation, and enhanced customer service are all powered by machine learning. As AI takes center stage with commoditized tools like GPT-4, its power to disrupt entire industries and workforces is undeniable. AI has already exceeded human ability to recognize patterns and make predictions. Soon, generative AI will surpass our ability to create text, software code, images, and 3D models. Artistic quality, at little to no cost, will revolutionize the creative world of digital content production. There are new challenges and opportunities. How will AI and virtual twins impact each other? Will generative AI augment or replace human creativity? What new skills will the next generation of creatives need? Join us on June 22nd as we talk to experts from around the world to spark new ideas and innovation.
Ladies and gentlemen, robots and humans, cyborgs and sentient beings from across the galaxy. Welcome to the 3D Experience Lab in Munich. Welcome to this AI extravaganza. In fact, artificial intelligence has arrived in our daily lives and will have a massive impact on us, for the good and bad. So many questions, so many things to discover. Matthias, what can we expect today?
You had some help from ChatGPT for that intro. I know it. You know, usually we try hard to really assemble diverse panels. But for this talk about generative AI, we really nailed it to get a variety of perspectives. We got technology, we got creativity, business, innovation, we got culture and art, and we'll even cover the human side of things. To bring it all together, it needs a very special person. So let's have some fun and say hello to Raj.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Matthias and Fabian. And hello, everybody, and welcome to the second 3DEXCITE Live of this year. My name is Raj Hayer, and I'm happy to host this evening. And don't take it as disrespectful that I'm sitting down. I just didn't want to miss the event, and the team accommodated me and my broken ankle. So thank you to the team for that. Now, today we are discussing the generative AI explosion, revolutionizing the creative world. Now, you might think that we predicted this topic when the EU AI Act was launched last week. But I think it's just a happy coincidence. Either way, we have 4 great panelists here to discuss their insights on what they see as the future of generative AI. Now, if you feel inspired, please feel free to take photos, or if you're online, to take a screenshot and share it online. Remember to use our hashtag 3DEXCITELive. But without further ado, let's bring the panel to the stage. So first we have Karsten Lindstedt, the head of brand experience at 3DEXCITE. He is a genuine generative AI aficionado. Now say that 3 times fast. Welcome, Karsten. We have Vladimir Alexieva, aka Metzmensch, who is a researcher, writer, and artist. Welcome, Vladimir. And generative AI lead for DAC for AWS, we have Aris Satpinas. Hi and welcome. And joining us, last but not least, virtually from Stockholm, Sweden, we have Sarah Joachim. Welcome and thank you for joining us live. After the initial discussion, there will be time for questions from our audience and online, so be prepared to challenge our panel, but let's get started in the meantime. So, unlike traditional AI, which recognizes patterns and then makes predictions, generative AI creates new content. Now, every single one of you has this passion for generative AI. I mean, Vladimir, you've even written a book, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. So for me, so I have 2 passions, the human culture and new technologies. And since 2015, I'm following developments into the AI field regarding creative models and such developments. And I found it very, very interesting. And I'm experiencing the feeling that we are right now entering new cultural epoch. And about this story, about these developments, so I wrote the book, and it will be soon in September. Yes.
Felt like we could have an Oprah moment where we give a book to everybody, but no, that you came out from Frankfurt, I understand. So Sarah, you started in programming in AI. What is it that inspired you to join this interesting field?
I started really quite early, and the truth is I was always interested in trends and how to bridge the gap between tech and how you can use tech for good, and how to support our human failings with AI and technology. So very much how to use technology to bridge the gap between us humans and be a support system for human facilitation and human-to-human contact.
So you're going to be bringing the human perspective for sure. That'll be very interesting as we get moving. Now, Karsten, you were always interested in AI. I believe when you were at Bosch with Tom Ackland, 3DEXCITE's very own CEO. So I know you brought some images to share as well. So I'd love for you to illustrate your passion, if that's possible.
Exactly. So back at Bosch eBike, I tried to use every course and every webinar that they had to understand the fundamentals. And then back in last year, 2022, everything kind of changed. And with the release of, in the beginning, DALL-E 2 from OpenAI, image generators, then Midjourney, the open version of it, and then the open source end of the year from Stable Diffusion. And that was just mind-blowing, especially for me, since I'm a passionate photographer for many years. It was fascinating to be anywhere around the world and even on another planet, and to suddenly create images and bring something back with products, subjects, and in different styles, and it was just amazing.
We've been enjoying your images behind you as you've been speaking, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
And some of those I created while riding the train today.
To come here.
Yeah,
good inspiration. Thank you. And Aris, last but not least, you started a PhD in 2021 for generative AI. I have to say, though, by the time you finish a PhD, it's going to change a lot, right?
Yeah, let's see. So in fact, in 2021, I started to pursue a PhD at University of Regensburg. Initially, I wanted to focus more on the MLOps side. And then I started what you do when you start a PhD. So you do a thing called systematic literary review, which is basically going through a lot of papers and trying to grasp basically the current state of research in that field. And that is a very manual and cumbersome process. And I was thinking, well, can we not use generative AI to basically make that more efficient, to improve the process? And this is what I'm focusing on now,
Fantastic. Actually, I'm going to continue with you, because you said when we spoke last that you think that this has the power to disrupt entire industries and workforces, and you said it's undeniable. So expand on that, and please jump in and challenge him on that one. We have too many AI sponsors here. They're like, yeah, AI. Okay, go on.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we really all know that this is a great hype, and where does it come from? So I think it has mainly two big drivers. So the first one is obviously some technological advancements, software level, hardware level. Open source played a large role. So this is the one side. But then we have the human side. It has become a lot more accessible, right? So nowadays there is UIs where you can basically interact with models. You don't need to program. And on top of that, these models are spitting out kind of natural things for us, like images or natural language, like, basically words. So yeah, if you think about how that evolved in the, let's say, business field, what we see is that it also gained very quickly traction. It went up to the boards. We see a lot of movement there. A lot of customers, if not all customers, are interested in that. And I would say the main two, let's say, perspectives on that are a lot of customers want to improve their operations. So if you think about, a design company, when you were creating a design, for example, you were needing maybe a day or a week for that. Now you can do that in under 30 seconds. And the second thing is opening up completely new revenue streams. A lot of companies have popped up, startups, also larger companies, for example, model producers. We have heard about Stable Diffusion. Stability AI is actually a partner of us, of AWS. They are training their models on AWS together with us. And they have built an entire business model out of that.
Very interesting.
I have to agree, especially in terms of the accessibility. It's just amazing to have it on your phone in the pocket and being able to interact. ChatGPT to just kind of ping pong ideas and create together. It's kind of part of the team in the end, and also generate rapidly visualizations of your ideas. So generate ideas, increase the quality of ideas, and also make them visible. So and across the complete product life cycle, if you are an engineer, if you are building products, you can do that. If you are what we call experience builder, if you create experiences for people, you can do that. And also the marketeers can use these tools. And again, from in the pocket, right? And then the finalization of it, the high quality or upscaling or outpainting, inpainting, whatever it might be, you can do afterwards. But again, it does not take a lot of time.
Fantastic. And Sarah, you had something to add? Sorry, I'll just...
No, I'm going to agree first and then make myself a little bit less popular and say that that's also where the challenge of Gen AI lies. And that is in the ease of access, because yes, everybody has, or a lot of people have access to it, but a large portion of the world still doesn't have access to it. And we're forgetting that part. And I think that's also a bit of an issue in terms of the kind of data that is in there and the kind of learning and process data that our open sources are using right now, because it is a predominantly white data that is in our systems, that is in the open AI. It is very, very dangerous to look at it as being representative of an entire planet. So definitely that's the ease of access to it for us who are on a 5G network and have our mobiles in our pockets, makes actually the gap of the data that we have access to quite larger.
Fantastic. That's a good perspective.
Yes, absolutely agree, because digital literacy is the main thing which we need right now, because we can look at the story of artificial intelligence, which I would separate in three parts. The first part was the second half of the 20th century, with the theoretical stuff, and people developed some ideas, but they couldn't really realize it because the hardware was not there. And then the second part is so from 2000 till 2015, something like this, because people began to work with it, but still bigger research institutions and companies. And now the last part is the part we are experiencing right now, because it's so to say free, available so for everybody, many of the models. And the main thing is to learn how to handle it, to learn how to work with it, and to understand that this is not only our future, but this is our present meanwhile.
And a lot
And
of
our
the
past.
past.
Yes, and our past.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
A lot of the
I want to
past.
make sure that we cover the fact that the data we have is our past.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
our future.
So-
And our past is biased. Our past is severely biased, actually. And unless we take height for that, and we're aware of that, and start introducing the human-led lenses that can help us build a more unbiased future and
Yes.
a more equitable future, that is going to be the biggest challenge in this process.
And I'd just like to introduce, visualize this with an easy example. So if you generate an image of a car riding, then because of all the training, a lot of the training data globally was left-handed drivers. So you will always see left-handed drivers. If you're coming from Great Britain, then this looks odd, and it takes a lot of energy in terms of prompting, sometimes it's even impossible to get a right-handed driver. Just an example.
Yeah.
I know there's much better examples,
No, it's a great example.
I actually think
but it's easy
great.
to understand.
and it shows the problem. So if you talk about ML, we always have the data, obviously, and data is biased if we are collecting it. And I mean, there is ways to handle that, right? So we have been doing that in traditional ML. It is some effort, though, and now we are talking about insane amounts of data, which we are training these models with. So you know that effort, that additional effort, we have to do, or we have to spend on removing that bias, is exponentially growing as well, obviously. So the point I want to make is actually we should basically, if we use a model, also take a look into what was the training data, what has the model been trained with, because this is obviously directly related to, I mean, which kind of biased answers it's going to spit out at the end.
I have probably some controversial opinion to this, because indeed bias is very crucial topic for AI, because the data sets are reflecting our society, and our society is biased. And so there are different use cases for AI, for example, for use in for designers or for industries. We have to be very aware of bias, and to prevent the bias, and to know how to prevent them. But also many AI artists are especially looking for this bias, because working with bias in AI is like a dialogue with our biased society, like looking into the mirror. And this is very important thing, as I think, because to be aware that for the first, the society is very biased. This is the main issue. And of course, AI is biased as well, yes.
Because we built it. Yes, of course. Actually, that's a nice segue into, we did talk about creatives in our title, and I want, this speed that it's developing, it's scary for some, it's inspirational for others, right? So, when Del Toro won for Pinocchio, he kept talking about how animation is moving forward, and we need to, of course he was referring to his use of AI in the movie. But does this current speed of change, and I'm going to start with you, Vladimir, because you just touched on it, is it bringing enthusiasm? Is it bringing fear for creatives in particular?
Yes, so I'm observing different opinions and different visions. I see creators which have rather fear towards the future, because they are afraid that AI might replace them. But I also see many creatives who embrace this new technology and try out different things, and find out that they can find new ways of narratives, new aesthetics, and so on. So this is really diverse discussion, and it will remain diverse, I think, so from now up. And I think there will be no real answer for everybody. There will be the answer for each of them, how to use it.
Yeah.
I totally have to agree. So what I saw in the communities, the global communities, the artist communities, there's kind of a shift. So in the beginning, of course, a lot of fear. Like in seconds there will be work, but now it's kind of it's changing. So people say, okay, I want to ride the wave, and I don't want to get drowned. So give it to me, give me everything you have, and I want to understand. I want to put my hands on it. And the next step is there's kind of mix and match of mediums already. So digital, then printing, scanning back in, transforming. So my personal opinion is there will be like a next level of creativity that is heading, and also you start to see kind of boredomness, repeatable generations, and again there will be a next level. So there will be artists who will create something new and not unseen out of that. So, and that will be totally different.
I'm going to come back to you with that one, because I have a specifically 3D experience, Excite one. Sorry, Sarah, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to add that in this conversation, we kind of just have to remember that Gen AI is not new. It has been accelerated in the past few months, absolutely. And it is AI powered, but it has to be human led. And I think one thing that people kind of tend, especially if you haven't heard about it, or if you haven't been in the field, you may be hearing, okay, these massive amounts of data and these massive sources and these open sources, and how are we handling all of this? And the fact is that more and more are realizing that we really do have control over the data sets that we use. What is fantastic right now is the power of sheer the computational power of the algorithms. So that's really where the magic can happen and can really be used in such great scenarios as adding safety to our workforce, and training our workforce so much better in very, very dangerous environments. For example, we have clients doing that right now. So I think that the main takeaway here is not so much about do we have to fear the technology, is what are the parts of this that we can control and make sure that whatever we make out of this technology gives us results we can use and can empower us and our humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I absolutely agree. I think we need to put the right guardrails around these models, depending on in which environment we operate. Might be different if you are like artist painting pictures, whereas if you're a creative, in a more corporate context, if you're a design agency. And the good thing is we don't only have control about the input, we also have control about the output, because these models are usually integrated into applications, into use cases. And what we can do is really, checking for toxicity, checking for factual correctness, making sure that these applications also run in an environment where data privacy, data residency, according to the requirements of the specific environment where this is running, and a lot of more, let's say, functional, non-functional requirements we might be having are really taken care of, right?
And in this environment of fantasy and everything is possible, liquid imagination, it's especially important to have this stamp of authenticity and make sure that products, if you present them, are correct. So, it depends. You can go fully generative, then it won't be a perfect representation. You know that by heart, I guess. But you can also mix, so like a setting, a surrounding an environment, and put a real product in there and make them interact.
One thing I just want to, sorry, I'll come to you in a second, but one thing that you've just hit on right there, I literally just read about this. Toyota Research Institute has unveiled a new generative AI technique for vehicle design, which is very relevant to 3DEXCITE. So what they're doing is incorporating precise engineering constraints into the design process, because like you say, you still have constraints in engineering. You still need to, so what I'd love you to discuss is, you have all this 3D data. How does that work with the AI, and what do you see for that future?
Yeah, there's different aspects to it. So basically, everything starts with the intent, so which should be rooted in the value proposition of the brand and also the product, right? So, and then the designers or the engineers start in the life cycle again. They start to create a product, and then at a certain point in time, it has a fidelity, and then you could start training. If it's a virtual version, we are the virtual twin company, so you can start using that to teach an AI model and to how the product actually looks like at a very early stage, and then place the product in all the different scenarios and environments that you intended it to be. So in the beginning. And also then going down and downstream to the marketing department, they can do it as well as intended, right? And then at a global scale in different variations based on the regions.
Fantastic. Now, Vladimir, I know you wanted to go, and then Sarah will come to you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So as you see, indeed, so I completely agree. And we have to see that artificial intelligence is a very human circumstance. It's not just automatized things per click. This is really, you need much human effort into creating data sets, into creating models, into evaluating the results, into creating, yes,
enriching the base or the
absolutely
data set. Right?
Absolutely, yes. So this is really human work. So that's why AI is very human, I would say.
Okay, perfect timing for you, Sarah. Jump in.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And I just want to add that the Toyota example that you brought up, Raj, is very much what has been going on for a while, which is within, when you have these constraints, you're talking about generative design. So you actually know that the environment has to be in a certain way. You know that, and that's within that framework that you will use the data sets that you have access to. Now, the fantastic part now is the amount of data that you can have access to, and how quickly you can compute that data and get to different options, and generate different options that you can present to your client. However, the human side of that, of course, is we love to say that we have a representation of our society in the bias in the data. And I actually don't agree. We do not have the representation of our society in the bias of our data. Our data is massively more biased than our society, because our society hasn't all had access to data and to data processing and to data inputs. And again, not to say that, but my favorite way of talking about AI is, it is shit in, shit out. Sorry to use that word, but if you use bad data, you'll get bad results. That is just the way it is going to be. And if you will start with, bad design, you'll end up with bad design. That's always going to be the case. And in this case, it's going to get exponential because the amount of data is so vast, and the speed of computation is so high that the mistakes that are made putting the data in are going to be exponentially present in the results.
I think the data is a very big challenge, and we've touched on it a lot. But I read this statistic from Capgemini: 73% of consumers trust content that is created by Gen AI. And Aris, why don't we start with you? What do you see as some of the other challenges that will come up with Gen AI?
Yeah, so I mean, I have I see that from the perspective of corporates, organizations. I've already touched on three things, right? The question, now if you use, this amazing technology for solving use cases in an organization that goes beyond, creating a wedding speech, or maybe creating a nice poem, or, a picture, profile picture or something like that, you want to actually have accurate information that might be residing from, spaces, like corporate spaces that might be confidential, and that is hopefully not in one of these large data sets out in the internet, right? So how do you handle that? Then toxicity is a thing, right? So if I have an organization and, I build some tool in there, I might even, integrate that to my products that are B2B, B2C products, and I expose it directly to my customers. If this is toxic, and actually a lot of other things as well, right? So, but the main message is, if you are doing that in an organizational setup, you need to kind of take care and to put it again in the right guardrails. Yeah.
I think you mentioned quite a few of these, Carsten. There was like hallucination, which first time I'd heard about that, regulations, ethics, copyright. I mean, there's just so many other pieces. Do you want to jump in on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, hallucination is a really interesting aspect. So it's basically, there's a lot of wrongness in the answers we heard it from ChatGPT, but also Google Bard is, so those are the large language models. To say it easy, if they don't know, they just make it up. So, and then
don't humans do that too? Though?
Yeah,
I mean, really.
this might be from our society again, but and also in the images. So I experienced it myself. I created. I wanted to have a 19 '69 Mustang, and then it looked fantastic. And I'm not a Mustang expert, to be honest. I just wanted to have a fantastic, iconic car in the picture. And then I uploaded it and wrote 1969. And then someone came up and said, oh, that's actually a mix and match of the 66 version, the 69 version, and because the model in the end decided, oh, that looks much better than what I saw before, and just mixed and matches together. So what looks nice.
Fantastic. Vladimir and then Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges indeed is the very inflationary use of AI right now, because everybody has the access to AI, and but also it's disrupting our perception of our culture. And I mean, in the past, people were blindly believing into what they're seeing. Even it was in the past else not, it was just a perspective. Even a photograph is not a documentation, it's just a perspective of this photograph. But now, people, I hope, it is my hope, people will be more aware that this image might be generated. And so they will take more care, I hope they will take more care to analyzing it. Of course, it's to...
The technology comes from the other side, and it gets better and better, more photorealistic. I mean, eyes are fixed, hands are fixed. All the issues that we had like 6 months ago are kind of gone. So it's the rapid development is working against that.
And Sarah, that's a great time for you to jump in. I have to say, the Norwegian Consumer Group is asking authorities to add more regulation around this disinformation and biases and fraud. And you've talked a lot about biases, but when we spoke, you actually had a positive outlook on, I think the term was cultural scientists. Can you explain a bit about that?
Yes, and the fact is that I'm very, very excited about what's happening right now, because it is the first time that I see technology, regulations, policies, everything happening really, really quickly and together. So we've seen right now the policy development go really, really quickly with Gen AI, including actually putting robust governance practices in place and asking companies actually to start being transparent about what data they're using and what kind of policies, what kind of models they're using, if they have limitations in their systems, or they have bias, or they have risks. All of these things are policies that should already be in place, that are in the process of being put in place. We also see a great interest in including new positions in different corporations, which is what you've mentioned just now, Raj, which is cultural scientists, to actually cover the biased side of data, to make sure that we can actually balance out what we know is a disadvantage or a bias of our data, and balance it out with what we want the future to look like. So when we know what the bias of the data is, that's the first step in making sure we don't actually make the same mistake twice. And cultural scientists are really, really good at this. Social anthropologists, same thing. That's their job. Knowing where we failed, knowing where we're failing, and knowing how to avoid those failures. And when you include the cultural side in your computation, all of a sudden you have the tools to really, really use the technology in service of human beings and in service of really growing a future-proof organization and society.
And Vladimir, you talked a lot about social and ethical impact when we spoke, and in fact you're an ambassador of OpenAI, right? Yes. So I'd love to hear more from that side.
Well, this is indeed a very interesting perspective I've got since 2020. So they asked me, because I wrote about a lot about GPT-3 and about generative AI. So they asked me to be part of this small group. We just help developers with questions about DALL-E, ChatGPT, GPT, and so on. And so so we have weekly calls, and I see their perspective. And this is very interesting as well, because they developed many really powerful models, and they need more regulations indeed. And this is their perspective. Yes. This is pretty contrary to open source, in my opinion, I am a huge fan of open source. But if the open source models begin becoming more powerful, then we have so we have to regulate open source as well, and this is quite trickier to regulate open source. But again, so looking at the efforts of OpenAI, they have so they try to put a lot to make it more ethical. Of course, this is their own perspective about ethical. So this is I think a very tricky part to find what is ethical worldwide. Because if we create a model for the entire world, this is the huge question, and I think we need a worldwide solution for this. But this is the future, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of ethicality, I'd like to add that Adobe went a good step there, and instead of just scraping the images from all over the internet, they use their stock material, which they own. They don't own it, but which they have anyways, and try to compensate the artists for contributing. So, and that makes a huge difference for theirs. They call it Firefly model family, which is already integrated in really great tools like Photoshop. They started with it in the open beta with Generative Fill. And you can use this really powerful tool already, not for commercial purposes, but you can start using it, get your hands on, start.
Yeah.
And it's not based on all the imagery out there. So.
Sorry, and Aris, sorry, I'll come to you in a second. Aris, we've left you alone too long. You're going to come and speak with us. But you did talk about models, that you don't need to spend 3 to 4 billion on models. So, we're talking about the easy access of OpenAI. What are some use cases that you see or opportunities you see for the future?
Yeah, so look, I mean, again, I'm talking to organizations, to corporates, and they have specific use cases. But there are also organizations, and again, we're not talking about, like creating a poem. It's actually business use cases at the end. Companies need to, generate return of investment. So the question is always, not only about the model, but how do I solve that holistic use case with an application around, also with one model, maybe multiple models that can have different sizes, but how do I solve it in the leanest possible way, with the leanest footprint in terms of costs, in terms of infrastructure, resource consumption as well. It's kind of linked, but that has also implications in terms of sustainability, for example, right? In terms of resource footprint for workforce. So skilled people, we kind of have a problem kind of in our society coming up into that direction. And this is essentially something where we need to get away from only thinking about the models themselves, but thinking about the holistic system, about solving use cases, solving problems for the users that want to use that at the end. Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I actually would love to add to that is the main conversations we're having with clients at the moment. It's actually literally what we're trying to solve. We've been trying to solve it for quite some time, and I think, interestingly enough, it is the clients that are in the industries that have had the most challenges that are the most transformation ready, and they were already on a transformation path. And with the Gen AI capability coming through this quickly, we've seen so much happen in using the algorithms and to really create a solution from the institutional knowledge that exists out there, the collective experience. That's something that was so difficult to transfer from generation to generation. We have aging workforces, for example. We have workforces that are leaving with the pensions, and they're actually leaving earlier in many of our markets. And a young generation that is often either a transient workforce, or it's a workforce that still needs to they're called the gigsters, so they're gig workforces. So they will come in in on short contracts. They want to be free. They want to be. There are new trends in the workforces, and you need to find models that will allow you to not only keep them safe but also get them on board really quickly. And this is where Gen AI really makes a huge difference. We're over, I think we've passed the 3 digits now in the amount of Gen AI use cases that we have with our clients that are specifically on these kinds of on solving these kinds of challenges. And this is really pretty amazing to be able to use that kind of knowledge base and experience and get the most out of it.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And Vladimir, I cut you off earlier. Please jump in. You talked
Yeah,
about arts and culture a lot, so
yes,
I'd love for you to add to
Thank
that.
you. So I see. I think also the creative companies are facing new challenges right now because, so as you mentioned, Photoshop is implementing AI more and more, and people, just ordinary people, are learning more and more creative generative AI, and they can apply it without coding, without Python knowledge, and so on. That's why this is where the creative companies should find the way how to still keep the customers, instead of the customers do their jobs by themselves at home with the systems. Because I think, and in my opinion, this is so it has the upside for the creativity or for the cultural development, because now we see indeed a huge development, explosion of creativity everywhere. And this is so people who previously hadn't imagined that they are creative because they couldn't draw, for example. They are developing, or they are discovering their own style, their own storytelling, and they are becoming artists. And this is very interesting, I think.
We have to go to Q&A. That was a great way to end on the panel discussion. Let's have some great questions from the audience. Do we have anything online or in the audience?
Maybe copyright.
I know you. I knew you were going to put it. Yeah, please.
I'm being told to sit down. I'm so excited. So thank you very much for all of those different insights. First of all, to the panel. Now, the question that I brought with me to give everyone else some time to think, right, guys? So I read a report last week about model collapse and about a sort of recursion, death loop, as it were, of models learning from previously generated results out of AIs. And obviously, in an institutional context, you might be able to control that, or you might not. I was wanting to ask you, what is your ideas on how we can sort of differentiate between, let's say, ground truth or like some kind of human-sourced material or something that we're able to treat as learning material versus, output which could pollute an ongoing learning process?
So, I mean, it's in fact a bit scary if we spin that maybe 10 or 20 years into the future. And it is a question I've been asking myself, where could that end? But using synthetic data to, train models, maybe in specific cases where we don't have a lot of training data, in cases where, data is imbalanced and we want to create more examples, out of a minority class in that sense, is not something completely new, right? So, and even, in the open source space, there have been models that have been, fine-tuned with synthetic data. And I guess to a certain extent, and this is where we are at the moment, this can work very well,
Yeah, great. Did somebody want to add before we go on to the next question?
Yes, probably. So I think as well, this is really good question, and I have several opinions about this question as well, because I think at the end, generative models are creating visions after our own tasks, so to say. And so even if so this is not factual truth, so to say. That's why from artistic opinion, it's very interesting to train models on generative images. From the factual part, it's probably kind of problematic, of course. but also at the end, it does matter what the model will create and what we want to get from the model. And this is the question which we should ask not AI, but ourselves. What is it, the image, and why have I summoned it with a prompt?
Fantastic. Do we have some more questions?
Yes, we do. When it comes to regulations and controlling measures in place, do you think that could make us less competitive compared to countries and companies that don't care about limits and rules?
It's a good question. Who wants to take? I see Sarah's hand up. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to take that one. There are very few companies that can afford to go the other way. So when regulations come in place, most of the companies are global anyway, and in our world of social media and where people actually start hearing, and we do tend to, as a population, when we hear something bad about a company, even though it may not be that bad, we tend to catastrophize it. So I think that if everybody goes one way and other people choose to go the other way, they're going to pay a very, very high price for that. But we see actually more of a tendency to want to go towards regulations and having the liability be on the company side in terms of disclosing what kind of data they're using, what kind of models they're using. I also want to add that the authentication question that came previously comes right into this as well. What kind of authentication traceability you may have. And the nerdy side of me, and I'm sorry to say this, I am a geek to the core, but the nerdy side of me wants to add blockchain to this, not to make it even more complicated, but it is one of the best authentication technologies out there, and it has helped a lot of artists be able to trace and monetize their creations. So definitely something to look into. Not a use case I've actually looked at, but yeah, made me think of it.
You say nerdy, we say intelligent.
just that it does not scale. That's the only issue with the blockchain. And
okay, we won't make this a blockchain discussion. I'm sure we can fill that hour too. Any more questions from the audience? Yes, I've got a couple here. Who are we going with?
Thank you. There is something I still don't really understand. Are we really assisting to AI revolution, or are we just assisting to the democratization, if it is the right term, of AI? Because I assume, you know this for sure better than me, that in the past years we have been using many AI applications, all of us, without even knowing that maybe it would be okay to call it AI. But right now we are just, most of the time we are talking about two things, ChatGPT and Midjourney, or all these very democratic tools, you know? So what's your take on this?
Yep.
Yes, probably. This was the part. So a huge part of my book was about this topic, because indeed, in my opinion, the democratization of AI is way more than just ChatGPT and Midjourney and the novel models, because so observing the development since 2015 again, we see how many possibilities the researcher provide to the audience to try things out even without knowing Python, for example, like Google Colab's notebooks and such topics. And so I made several workshops for kids, like from 8 till 12, and I showed them how does such Colab notebook works, and they so even if they don't know Python, but they could create texts, images, music, and so this is, I think, this enabler is the good question. Is it democratization or revolution? I think both probably of it.
I'd like to add to that. So I mean, only because of the advancements that we saw, people have been motivated in the open source community, especially to contribute to create new, not possible control elements. For example, I mean, ControlNet is something super important. It's a technology that gives artists back control. So it's not some randomness, a few words, and let's see what comes up and pick. No, you start to have control, the perspectives, the style, the posing, different options. So that would have been, and also the advancements in image quality that we see wouldn't have been possible with this infusion of technology and development.
Yeah. Thank you for adding to that. Yes, Aris.
Yeah, I also think that democratization is a prerequisite for a disruptive revolution in that sense. If you think about what happened with, the digital revolution, so only because the internet got accessible to, well, obviously not everyone in the world, but like the majority, it's also not the majority, but a lot of people in the world, to be correct here, only this basically was the base for, digital companies growing out, a lot of startups becoming unicorns, also companies, large organizations going through a digital transformation. And I think, I don't know if it's going to be the case. That's future things, but it could actually be, in my opinion, yeah.
I do want to take more questions, but Sarah, you wanted to add something?
Just wanted to add, and I saw Aris feel me coming in on that one, because the word democratization is always rough when 2/3 of the world don't have access. But I think ease of access is probably more of the word I would use here. And I'm always very careful with using revolution. It's more of an evolution. This has been in the works. It's been happening. It's a lot more an evolution of AI rather than a revolution.
Great. Thank you for that perspective, Sarah. I see a lot of nodding heads. You can't see them in the audience. Matthias, you had a question.
Well, I've got a question on sustainability. I think we briefly touched on it, and we were talking about challenges, computational power, all of those kind of aspects. But I just wanted to ask the panel, what are the, let's say, top 3 opportunities for organization, for corporates? You talked about your field of work to really embrace this and make a difference through AI. What are the major opportunities here?
Yeah, so I guess the hardware side is definitely something that is relevant. So we at AWS, we are developing specialized hardware that is actually lowering the environmental footprint, the energy consumption substantially by up to 50%, right? So also using, hardware in an efficient way is a big thing, and this can also come up to the, software layer then. So, using the model, running the models without going too deep into the details, but running the models in an efficient way on the hardware. Maybe you want to...
Sarah, I'll just jump to you for a second, because I know you said something when we spoke about serving humanity, so I knew you're going to have something to add there.
I do. So actually, our research shows that actually 93% of executives are ready to use AI for their sustainability goals and the ESG goals. And the interesting part there is that many of them had already started this transition and looking at emissions and net zero and all of these transformations that are not only needed but also a demand by, and all of them have 2030 as their targets, whether it's emission technologies or if it's optimizing their existing industrial facilities, or it could be pretty much anything the company is looking at doing. They've already started this journey, and what GenAI is doing is really giving us at least the chance to help companies, give them a superhuman scale. We're really kind of almost being the spider biting, the Spider-Man, which is really giving and using GenAI to accelerate that transition. And I think the goals that the companies have set for themselves, I think the next step would be explore which areas you need a lot of data and data insights and access to that data. A lot of data is in silos today and not giving them the chance to really impact their environment, impact their sustainability goals and governance goals and so on. that's something Gen AI is such a fantastic tool for, because we already know what that data set is that they need to actually create that kind of those kind of solutions. So I think, yes, think of the greater good, because in this case, we can actually use this human power, this superpower, to get to the greater good a lot quicker.
And also advances in technology help again. So some researchers from Snap, the company who creates Snapchat, they published a paper where they said it's doable to generate images in 2 seconds on a mobile device. So that basically means that's kind of edge computing. You bring the compute to all the devices that the people have anyways, and of course 2 seconds using the hardware that you have anyways is much a different story from having huge server spaces running with full steam.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and I know there's more questions, but maybe we can answer those in the interviews afterwards. But I'd like to just give you the opportunity to say final words, final thought you want to leave with the audience that you want them to remember. Aris, you go first.
Yeah, I think it's quite a hype. Everyone wants to do stuff with generative AI. I think we need to find the right guardrails, as I said, and we are still in the very early stages of this technology or this movement in this sense. So keep your eyes wide open, and I am personally also very excited about what's going to happen in the open source space, because it's exploding at the moment.
Fantastic. Love that positivity.
Yes, so I want to keep it short. So don't be afraid of AI. Learn about AI and use it where you need it. Use it meaningfully and use it for good.
We need some positive movies out there that are not about Terminators then. Seriously. Sarah, you next.
I almost want to go there and say, it's a superpower, use it responsibly. But I think my key point here is, don't be afraid to explore it. Don't be afraid to be part of it. And the more people who are exploring it, being part of it, seeing how to use it, again, not only for good, but also to make your voice heard, be part of the data, be part of the sets, be part of the prompting. And again, we didn't talk much about prompting, but prompting is becoming a super skill. You need to have it. It's not going to take away from your job. It's going to help you do your job a lot easier. So definitely just explore. Don't be afraid. Try it out. And again, use it responsibly.
AI to augment teams rather than replace teams. I like that, Sarah.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Carsten.
Yeah, I would add to the explosion or beginning part, even though the technology, AI in general is not new, but the creativity is really kind of exploding, and the different types of tools out there. So I would call it the Cambrian explosion of creativity. And this will definitely change the level of creativity globally if everyone has access even more. And it's just, I'm so excited to see what will happen in like 5 years. I expect that 10-year-old kids will be able to create the movies that you have been talking about, and not based on scribbles, but they will look kind of like Hollywood, because it's just doable.
Yeah, it's actually frightening how much my nephews know about all technology compared to me. But that's it for today. That's another 3DEXCITE Live wrapped up. Thank you to the team here at 3D Experience Lab and the technical team behind the scenes who make this happen. Thank you to the panelists for your insights and our great audience. Now, if you want to continue the exploration of AI, 3D Experience Lab will be at Deutsches Museum in Munich for the Festival of the Future, July 6th to 8th, and 8th is a family day, so go check it out. See you again in October for the last and final 3DEXCITE Live for this year, and thanks, and we'll see you again.